Welcome to this week's edition of the Dakota Angler 2-Minute Fishing Report. Well, it seemed like Mother Nature gave us a really nice stretch of weather lately, but we had a front came through the area Thursday night into Friday, and that definitely impacted the fishing around the area. And what do I mean by that? We're talking about the pressure, and we'll talk about that in Todd's tackle tips. But that really made the fish negative Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday the fish started to rebound nicely. And a lot of people came away with some nice fish, to say the least. The lakes around the northeastern part of the state that produce walleyes included Bittier, and that seemed to be the hottest lake. You still have to sort quite a bit, but if you're looking for a good walleye bite, that's the place to be right now. Other lakes included Walleye, Opitz, Reed, Dry Lake by Clark, Big Stone, Long, a few being caught there, as well as Indian Springs, also Goose, and Hazelton. Down the southeastern part of the state, the lakes included Dry Lake by Willow Lake, Thompson, Whitewood, and Ponset, and all four of those lakes, really, it was dependent on the day, to say the least. A few still being caught at Henry, also 81 Ponds, Sinai Island, Vermilion, and then Twin. And remember, Twin is the trophy lake. The Missouri River, up and down again as the roller coaster goes. The bite really hasn't taken off in some areas. We're still waiting for that to occur, especially from Chamberlain South. But to the north up here, guys are catching fish. The quality isn't there yet as far as the big fish. But again, guys are coming away with some numbers of walleyes this past week. Now, what are people doing to catch the walleyes? Nothing real special at this point in time. A lot of people are trolling crankbaits and trying to find those more active fish, as well as pulling bottom bouncers with crawlers. Other people are using jigs and plastic, swim baits, and more split tails right now. Remember, this time of year, it seems like the fish prefer split tail plastic versus the paddle tail. And also, they'll show up a little bit better on the forward-facing sonar. Also, snap jigging. A lot of people are using snap jigs, using, let's say, jigging wraps, or the Moonshine Shiver minnows, the new pitched puppets from Northland, and snapping them back to the boat. And again, covering more water that way, and also using the forward-facing sonar to help target those fish. And as far as a panfish bite is concerned, the perch bite right now, the big story is Big Stone. If you're looking to take a family out and have some fun for a weekend, Big Stone is the place to be. You're going to catch plenty of perch and also nice bluegill, and we'll talk about that. But Big Stone's been the best perch bite. Other lakes included Pickerel, Walleye, Dry Lake by Clark, Dry Lake by Willow Lake, a few being caught at Thompson, Ponset, as well as Whitewood and Madison. And then as far as the bluegill is concerned, again, like I mentioned, Big Stone, you're talking some mounter type of a trophy type of bluegills. Just some really nice fish, to say the least. Other lakes included Clear, Vermilion, also East and West Okoboji, Big Spirit, and then also Pahoja. Now, what are people doing to catch the panfish? Again, nothing special. A lot of people are using bobbers and small tungsten jigs, or other people are jigging with drop chain lures like the Haley or specifically the Pilkey. But the main thing is to remember, it's very much a finesse type of bite, very light bite. So you need to make sure you have the right equipment to help you see or feel that bite the next time you're out. In this week's edition of Todd's Tackle Tips, we're going to talk about the weather, a subject very near to my heart, to say the least. And the reason why is, maybe some of you may not know, I am a meteorologist for the National Weather Service, been one for close to 40 years now, quite honestly. And the one thing that we always talk about is the impact that weather has upon fishing. That's the one thing that you can't control, folks. You can have all kinds of tools in your toolbox, such as all the latest jigs, all the sensitive rods, also the latest and greatest electronics. But the one thing you can't control is the weather and how it impacts your success out on that body of water. And how you can do that is by paying attention to the weather. Now, this past week, I had an interview with the Midwest Angler podcast guys, Matt and Scott, and we talked about the impacts that weather it can actually have on your fishing success, and it has to do with pressure. A lot of times people will talk about how they can forecast weather by how their joints will ache, and that has to do with pressure, determining the amount of fluid that you have in your joints. It's the same thing, the same effect that it will have on the fish, whether or not it's through the ice or through the water. The main thing is that when the pressure is rising, the fish, the bite will be the toughest. And so you'll have to change your presentation. You'll have to downsize your jig. You'll have to go looking for those more active fish, trolling, covering a lot more body of water. But when the pressure is falling, no matter what you use, you're going to be successful because those fish are hungry. They're on the prowl looking for food. So how do you know when the pressure is rising and the pressure is falling? Plain and simple, watch the wind. If you don't know what wind direction is blowing, watch the flag. The direction the flag is pointing is the direction the wind is blowing. So if on days when you have a south wind, that pressure is falling. And so the fish will be on the prowl looking for food. There's not much you need to worry about. You're going to catch fish. On days when the pressure is rising, in other words, the wind is out of the northwest, that's when the pressure is going to be rising and the fishing is going to be the toughest. Especially on those days when we all want to go out. In other words, when there's not a cloud in the sky, plenty of sun, what we call a high sky, and that there's not very little wind out there. And those are the days when the fishing is the toughest, and that's where you need to change your presentation. Once you figure this out, you will be able to use that as another tool to throw in your toolbox because, again, no matter what you may be throwing at them, it may not trigger a bite. You can watch your electronics. On those days when the pressure is the highest, you'll see that those fish are totally negative. They'll come up and look at your jig and just go right back down. They're not interested because they are full. They're trying to stay buoyant, and the way they can do that is by enlarging their bladder in response to the pressure change. So don't get hung up on the number. Get hung up on the trend or the change in the pressure. In other words, the days when we have the more stable weather, where the weather is, the pressure isn't changing or the weather isn't changing, those days are fine, even if the pressure is high, because the fish have stabilized now. So again, pay attention to the weather, pay attention to the wind. The way you can do that is also by looking at the forecast, and that forecast is available at weather.gov/Sioux Falls, or simply go to weather.gov and click on your area and you'll see the wind direction, because we don't forecast pressure. But I can guarantee you this much: if you start taking a journal and keeping track of the weather, you'll see a trend. So pay attention to the weather. That's the one thing we can't control. But what we can control is our success out there by changing our presentations, by looking at the weather and paying attention to it at that point in time. If you have any questions about this whatsoever, feel free to give me a call at 605-336-9132. But I can guarantee you this much: it's not always just that simple. There's other things that we'll talk about here in the future. And now it's time to take a look at a few photos that you sent in to me this past week. And remember, folks, if you'd like your photo included in next week's version of the 2-Minute Fishing Report, all you have to do is send it to me, and there's no shame in bragging a little bit, honestly. Send it to Todd at dakotaangler.com. And before we end this week's report, I want to remind you of two things. First off, as I mentioned the past couple of weeks, we keep talking about it, and that's the launch of our new website, dakotaangler.com. We are looking at the new redesign of the site being launched by this time next week. So we keep talking about it, but now it looks like it's coming to be. So if you have any questions about the site or have anything that you'd like added or changed, by all means, let us know. Also, the second thing is mark your calendars for November 8th through the 10th for the Dakota Angler Ice Institute at the Sioux Falls Arena and Convention Center. Folks, it is a show that you're not going to want to miss this year. We have some great speakers, including James Holst and also the Crappie Chronicle guys, and there's more to be added yet. So again, mark your calendars, November 8th through the 10th. Take anyone that is interested in ice fishing. You're going to want to be able to spend the entire weekend out there because the deals are going to be that great. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at 605-336-9132. Well, folks, that's this week's version of the 2-Minute Fishing Report. For Dakota Angler, I'm the owner, Todd Heitkamp, and as we say around here, fish on! We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and always stay safe.